Hi, I'm Georgia Nutty Clark, online coach and parkour coach, and I'm here today with Gemma, who is also an online coach and strength coach. We are doing a joint podcast today, so I'm going to hand over to Gemma to give an introduction about herself, and then I'll tell you a bit more about me as well.
So I'm Gemma. I have been training women for over a decade in their strength to feel incredible and improve their confidence. I started training myself with pretty low body image and zero fitness level after finishing my career in the music industry and really wanting to change my life. And that just spurred on what has now become an obsession into fitness and strength training for women. And it's a pleasure to watch women transform into their strongest self, because I've always believed that women mentally are so incredibly strong. And when you match physical strength with the mental strength, like, it's just incredible the growth that women experience when they combine the two.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm Georgia and I am an online coach and parkour coach. I help women, or in fact, I help people, not just women. I help people to get strong, get seriously strong, especially at bodyweight skills. So things like pull-ups, muscle-ups, dips. But often that comes with a little bit of weights training as well. And often people really enjoy that once they get stuck in. I also help women to start parkour. So I have a parkour class in London that I run because I found that, first of all, parkour is my sport, something I'm super passionate about. But I found that a lot of women were excited and interested in trying it, but weren't sure how. And obviously when you think of parkour, often you think of young teenage boys. So there wasn't really a way for them to start. And so I started this series of workshops, which now run once a month, and they're almost like a meetup. And we meet up. I coach them for a couple of hours, and then we all go for a coffee and a catch up after, which is really, really sweet and has been a really wonderful addition to my week or my month. But ultimately, I help women through my online coaching to get strong, try parkour, and also lose weight, specifically fat, and build muscle. And stick to it. And that's the hardest part, is actually sticking to it for long enough to see results. So as online coaches, the biggest part of our job is keeping our clients motivated and accountable, but it is also the most rewarding part, and seeing
100%.
seeing clients see insane results and also the results they wanted. I've had clients this year absolutely lose a lot of weight because they needed to, but then also build loads of muscle and just feel amazing in their body and feel really confident when they walk into a gym. And that's so, so rewarding. So yeah, that's what I do. And today we're here to chat because of a podcast Gemma recorded. If you want to go and listen back to her previous episodes, I think the most recent one, or the second to last maybe, was
I think it's the most recent.
The most recent was about your breast reconstruction. I was going to say boob reconstruction, but it is boob reconstruction, but breast reconstruction. Which I'll let you talk about. But I listened to the podcast, and you mentioned as you were in your recovery from the surgery, you mentioned to the nurse that you were on a treadmill, and the nurse was like, no, like, you can't be losing weight right now. And you were like, no, I'm doing it because it makes me feel good. This is me just moving my body. I'm not doing this as a specific structured routine to lose weight. Do you want to talk a bit more about it? Because it really stuck with me, and I was like, I kind of forget that there's this misconception that exercise is for weight loss and nothing else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I had a breast reduction 2 weeks ago now, so I'm still very much in the recovery phase. But like, as a trainer and as somebody who has done an awful lot of research into the body, and you'll know this as well, like, one of the worst things you can do, especially like if you have DOMS or your body's not feeling good, is lie on the couch and sit around. Because what you want to do is you want to promote like protein and the oxygen going through your body to promote the recovery. And when you're lying down, you don't get that same regeneration. So I was just doing very light steps. Like, my average step count on a general day to day is very, very high. I spend most of my day doing my client calls on a treadmill. Not going fast by any means, but I keep my steps high because I work at a desk a lot of the time. And then, so I scaled back like to a quarter, if not maybe a third of my steps. And I was keeping it very light, very slow. And the nurse rang me to check up and see how the recovery was going. And I said, yeah, great. I'm feeling good. I am sleeping a lot, which is completely natural. but I'm trying to stay a little bit active. I was on my treadmill this morning and she immediately was like, absolutely not. And I was like, okay. I felt her reaction was really extreme. And then she went on to say, look, you can lose weight at any time. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. I have no intention of losing weight. I don't use exercise as a weight loss tool. One, because I'm a coach, and as a coach, I know exercise as a weight loss tool is a shit weight loss tool. It's good at so many things, but weight loss is not the best thing that exercise is good at. And it just kind of floored me. And it shouldn't have, because I work with a lot of medical professionals who don't understand exercise the way we do. But her immediate reaction was like, oh, I must want to lose weight. Now, she has never met me. She was just doing a checkup. So she doesn't know that I'm a relatively lean woman who is in really, really good shape. So she doesn't know me from Adam. But it was her immediate assumption that the only reason that I could possibly be exercising was for weight loss.
Yeah.
And it just made me really sad, because it reduces something that's so incredible for women specifically, I believe, to something as mundane as a bit of weight loss.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, you were on your treadmill doing a walk, just like another woman might walk to the local shops and back. Like, you just happen to do it in your house on a treadmill. And also, and importantly, to be clear, for you, it's like if 100% effort for you is, testing your 1RM, which is something you would have done before the surgery. Now you're working at maybe like 5%. So that's okay. For a normal person, that's like just saying, okay, I'm not going to do any exercise classes. I'm going to rest. For you, resting is still at least walking, and yeah, and I guess the word treadmill might have made her think you were running, for example, because that's what we associate with a treadmill. Whereas now, increasingly, it is used as a tool from home to just walk and increase your steps, which is not really exercise. It's just walking, which we should be doing. And yeah, like you say, will actually promote recovery. But also is like a healthy habit, just like we drink water or we eat protein or we eat, which is a healthy habit.
100%.
We should also be walking at least the minimum of, something a day. And so that was really interesting. And also, yeah, it kind of got us chatting, and you work with a lot of older clients, which would be interesting to hear about, because when I think of exercise, I know I will be doing it forever, and because I love it, I enjoy it, but also because it makes my joints feel better. Like, when I'm exercising, I feel strong. And yes, when I'm, I don't know, 60, 70, 80, I won't be chasing an 100 kilo deadlift or anything like that, but I will be chasing...
Never say never.
I mean, yeah, who knows? But what I will be chasing is doing a deadlift, like maintaining that movement pattern. Whether it's 40 kilos or 100 kilos, I hope, unless there's any specific reason why I can't, that I'll be doing that movement or other movements in the gym, whatever my age, because it's about maintaining range of motion in the joints. It's about maintaining muscle, which as you age, we all know we lose muscle. That's one thing. One stat that everyone knows is as you age, you lose muscle, but you don't have to. It's mostly a lifestyle choice. So maintaining muscle. And third, although there's probably more, is enjoyment. Like it feels good. It makes me happy. And then it feels really good to exercise. So why wouldn't I do that when I'm 60, 70, 80? Of course, granted that I'll take whatever modifications I need to do at that time. But I have modifications I have to take even now. I have a slightly strained glute. It's actually doing really, really well now. But for a couple of weeks, I had to modify how much I was lifting to actually, in fact, I really reduced what I was lifting to focus on leaving the glute to recover. But that's normal. Of course, you're going to modify and listen to your body, but that doesn't mean you stop completely.
Yeah,
What's
100%.
Yeah, working with older adults.
I started working with older adults completely kind of by mistake. It was an accident. I was working in a big commercial gym, and at the time I was one of the older trainers in the gym, because a lot of trainers, they tend to be very, very young. As you will know, there's a lot of fallout. Most trainers don't make it past, I think the stat is like year 2.
Yeah.
A lot of them finish up and go on and pursue other things. So I was one of the older people. So when my first older client walked in, she was like, I want a trainer. They were all like, talk to her. Because because it was young men, they were like, I don't know what to do with like a woman. And I think she wasn't even by my standards anyway, she wasn't even that old. I think she might have been in her 50s. But all the young lads were like, no, don't talk to her, I'll have. And I was like, so I never really kind of, from the outset, I didn't intend to be a trainer for older people, but through my own personal experience and just enjoyment, actually, because I find I really enjoy training older women a lot. And one of the reasons I started training was, yes, I wanted to change my lifestyle, but I have a massive family history of osteoporosis. Every single woman on my mother's side, from my grandmother, I don't know how many generations back, has had really severe osteoporosis, to the point that it's been a very large contributing factor to them dying very, very young. My own grandmother died when she was 63.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not, I can't go down like that. So like I was like, I gave up smoking, really cut back on drinking and really improved my diet. So I kind of understood, because I've seen a really extreme side of what happens when you don't take care of yourself as you age. So I understood the mentality of what these women were trying to avoid. And it just kind of went from there. And in my experience, they have gotten great results, if not better than younger women, because they're so determined, because they know what's at stake. It's not about a bikini, it's not about a dress size, it's about quality of life for them. Because I think the mistake around strength training that I believe is prevalent, especially in the Instagram era, is strength training is purely to look good. And listen, we'd all be fucking lying if we didn't say looking good was important to us. Of course it is. I want to look good, I want to feel good in my clothes. However, not at the expense of being able to carry my shopping bags up my stairs, at the expense of being able to bend down and tie my shoelaces, to be able to get up and down out of my bed. Like, the number one reason somebody goes into a nursing home is that they can't get up and down off the toilet. That's a basic squat pattern. And that's exactly goes back to your point of controlling your own body weight. You know, which is why I like to challenge the women that I train with weight training, because if you can do it with a barbell on your back, you can do it in your bathroom when it's you and your body weight.
Yeah.
And over time, that clientele for me just kind of exploded. They brought their friends, and it's just become, I'd say 60% of my clientele are over 50.
Cool.
And absolutely killing it. I had one of my oldest clients, she's in her 70s, she ran a marathon last year.
Wow.
I've never run a marathon.
Yeah, me neither.
I have never, and I'm not training now, and she has just there, as of 2 days ago, beat my deadlift PR.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
When I come back to full training in March, I have some fucking work to do.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's so impressive. Shout out to her.
Yeah, no, she's incredible. And she only started training in her 60s. You know, and I think there's this
That's interesting.
I talk to so many women who are my age, I'm in my late 30s, who are like, oh, I think it might be too late. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I have women 20 years older than you training. I have women in their 60s who are outlifting their husbands. I will not be hearing any bullshit of women in their 30s, 40s and 50s being like, oh, I think I've missed the boat. Just get on the fucking boat.
Yeah, and it's actually a little bit frustrating how weak a lot of women are in their 20s and 30s, and they can kind of get away with it, so they don't realize it. And they kind of know they should be doing more, but they don't prioritize it because, like you said, there's no urgency. But then they're also, on the other hand, saying, I think it's too late, or it's not for me. And I think what's a shame is the misunderstanding that how little you need to do a week for it to make a difference. Like, if we're talking about the difference between going in a nursing home or not, you don't need to be lifting heavy weights. Just lift weights literally 1 to 2 times a week. Say that it's 2 times in your diary on a Tuesday and Thursday, but then when you're on holiday, no drama, you skip that week, or you just do 1 that week, fine, and you move on. But you do about 2 times a week, every week. You don't have to be lifting heavy. You could be doing 3 rounds of 10 reps. You could do, literally 6 exercises in your session, and that's it. It could take you 30 minutes. Once you get into a groove with it and you know what you're doing, take you 30 minutes. You don't have to change the exercises every week or every month. Like they can literally pretty much stay the same. The only reason to change them is if you get bored, but actually just getting really good at those 6 exercises is enough. And
100%.
the difference that can make is huge. And I think often you see, for example, if you follow us and you see, for example, me doing a muscle up or doing a really heavy deadlift, that's not necessary. You don't need to get to that level. It's just that it gets addictive, it gets fun to push yourself, and that's great. That may happen to you, it may not. But if it doesn't, and you think, I really don't enjoy weightlifting, I really don't enjoy the gym, I don't want to do it, just going and doing, and this could be with a few kettlebells or dumbbells at home if you really don't want to walk into a gym, but all paying a £30 membership, going into a gym and just doing your 6 exercises, 3 rounds, 10 reps, really just trying to move with good form, maybe increasing the weights a little bit each week, but we're talking, 10 kilo weights, 12 kilo weights. You don't have to be doing 100 kilos to see the benefits. And it will just improve the whole stability of your body, the muscles you have around the joints. So if you are in your late 30s or 30s in general, 40s, 50s, 60s, it's never too late to start, and you definitely don't need to lift heavy. If you want to and you start to enjoy it, great. If you want a coach to push you, great. But even if you just do that like small routine, the benefit it can have is huge. And then go off and do exercise that you enjoy. Go off and do, swimming or dance classes or, join a Zumba. Like find some things you just do for enjoyment. But that little tick box of doing 2 strength sessions a week will most likely keep you out of a nursing home. And you may even find you start to like it and crave it because actually your body feels more, just feels like you have better posture, you feel stronger, your joints feel more stable. When you go and do your Zumba class, you feel stronger in a good way. You feel more stable through your joints. So yeah, I think there is a little bit of a misunderstanding of how much you need to do, or rather how little you need to do to have a huge impact.
I couldn't agree more. I think one thing that I always impress on my clients is that we are not trying to become pro athletes. Fitness should enhance your life, not take it over. You do not need to be training for hours and hours on end. And that was something I made the mistake of when I first got into fitness. I was like, right, well, I need an hour and a half and I need to do this. And I was training like 5-6 times a week and doing cardio on top of that. And then when I eventually got into the fitness industry, I kept that up. And then I was like training, I was doing spin classes and I was doing step aerobics and I was like, and then I burnt out. And actually, when I look back and when I think about my energy, it was terrible. I was relying on caffeine and I wasn't sleeping that well. And I certainly didn't look like I was doing as much as I am. And I think people think, oh, if I do more, I will look better. I look better now than when I was burning myself out. And the thing about with fat loss is that people really, really don't understand. The more you do an exercise, the more your body needs to eat. Mm-hmm. And the hungrier you are, especially if you are adding cardio upon cardio upon cardio. And that's what most people turn to for fat loss. And I'm like, oh my God, that's terrible. You're just genuine. You're burning through your calories and you are going to just make yourself hungrier, which is going to make your fat loss even harder because all you're going to be able to think about is food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And you'll probably do it for a week or two. So many times people are like, oh, I think I need to do more cardio. I want to lose some weight. And you'll be stubborn, which is great. You'll stick to it for like a week, maybe 2, if not maybe less than that. But let's say you manage to push through and stick to it a week or 2. And then you find yourself off track. Something takes over, work's busy, you fall off track, you haven't done any cardio for a week, and you think that's why it's not working. And it's not because instead, what the real reason is because it was completely unsustainable in the first place and it wasn't what was going to get you your goals. I always say, like, do the cardio because you enjoy it and because and also because it's good for your heart and lungs. And all exercise is great. It will help speed up weight loss, but the main thing that will help you lose weight is good nutrition and doing it for long enough. It's no good doing good nutrition for like 3 days. It needs to be for like 3 months, and that shouldn't sound like a long time. Like, this should be for life. But it's not about doing a 3-day juice cleanse, which is absurd. Like, it is about just healthy habits that are sustainable and that eventually you crave. And it can be hard to imagine this at the start, but they become what you crave. And actually going off of your routine is something you like. You might do it because you're going to visit an auntie or a family member, and you might have a few days off because you're at someone else's house, but actually you crave coming back home, coming back to your healthy breakfast, your healthy lunch, and your beautiful dinners that you cook, But nutrition is the one thing that will help you lose weight. If you've been exercising for a long time and you've never lost weight, you'll understand this. You'll know, like, this, it is nutrition. Exercise can help speed it up, and also strength training is really the key, because then you start to build lean muscle. You start to build that muscle tone, which I actually don't mind the word tone. I know now there's a lot of talk about you don't tone a muscle. Well, you build the muscle up a bit, and so it's toned. That's what people mean. So strength training is what will help you build muscle. It will help you to look the way you're probably describing, so leaner. And also, if you hold more muscle, you're burning more calories at rest. Whereas the opposite happens when you do cardio. You get slimmer, you lose muscle, and you burn a hell of a lot of calories. So you actually get hungrier. So building muscle will have the opposite effect. Building muscle will make you stronger, leaner, look more toned, and it will actually mean that you don't necessarily feel hungrier, but your body's busy burning more calories to keep those muscles there. So yeah, strength training is key for fat loss, nutrition, and then do the cardio if you enjoy it, or if, do it once a week because it's good for your heart and lungs. Also, resistance training or strength training does improve your cardio as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I do cardio. I do 2 cardio sessions a week because I genuinely enjoy it. I used to love teaching spin classes. I have a spin bike inside, and I just really enjoy it. And I always think, and I'm an ex-smoker. I was a really, really heavy smoker back in the day. So for me, I really prioritize looking after and pushing my lung capacity, my heart capacity, because I know that for a very long time I was doing a lot of damage there. So it's really important for me to build that up and really, really take care of it. But I think just the point I want to make on fat loss and people giving up after a couple of weeks, the one thing that I would love for everybody to think about when they go into a fat loss journey is how long it took you to get to this point where you needed to get into a fat loss journey. It didn't happen in 2 weeks. It probably happened in a number of years, actually, if you're being really honest with yourself. You have deprioritized yourself or your nutrition for whatever reason, and there's loads of reasons that happens, and there's no judgment here. But if it took you a number of years to get to this point, you're not going to reverse out of it in 2-3 weeks. It's going to take time, and you need to be patient with it. And I understand that, especially in a social media era where you're looking at before and afters all the time. And for me personally, I think they're problematic in themselves. I don't use those as a tool to promote my business. But if you're constantly bombarded, which a lot of people in a fat loss or a health seeking journey will start to follow a lot of accounts, and they'll see loads of before and afters really dramatic, and it can seem like it's supposed to happen quickly. But things that come quickly fade quickly. And if you get into something and you lose a shit ton of weight in, let's say, 6 weeks, and it's happened, because here's the thing, fat loss as a concept is actually really, really simple. You can lose weight really, really quickly, but it's maintaining it that's the problem. And if you do it too quickly, you can't maintain what you're doing. It's not possible, because no one wants to live like a fucking Tibetan monk, eating organic lettuce and drinking what the tears of priests, because they have to be on this strict diet. And it's like, if your diet involves you living like a fucking hermit, it's not sustainable unless you're genuinely a hermit and you never leave the house. Cool, okay, knock yourself fucking out. But for the rest of us mere mortals, it needs to include a social event or a couple of glasses of wine. And, the majority of my clients stick with me for usually the minimum of a year. Now, that's not my sign-up requirement, but if you stick with a coach for a year, you are going to go through stresses. You are going to go through falling off the wagon. You're going to go through periods where you're not fucking arsed. You're going to go through periods where your sleep is terrible or you cannot exercise. You're going to go through the whole range of what gets in people's way, and you have that solid support. You have somebody to kind of steer the ship when you're not able to kind of draw you back in, to stop you going, well, fuck, it doesn't work. Because I know, and as a coach who I'm sure you have too, I've coached hundreds of women at this point in my career. There's not something that I can't help a client back from, because I've seen it all at this point. There's very little I haven't seen. I've coached women back from hip replacements, through bereavements, through changing jobs, through having babies, heartache, you name it. But it's just having that support is absolutely key, and having the patience to stick with it, because we're building the rest of your life. We're not just building a fat loss phase. I do, lifestyles. I don't want you to get in shape for 12 weeks and then fuck off back to your life and you forget all about me and everything that you've learned. And then you end up back in the same cycle with another coach going, oh, well, that didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. With you for 12 weeks, working really hard on it, and then leaving because 12 weeks later you're like, oh, it's all done, I've got my results, and then spending the next 12 weeks undoing it all. So, yeah, I completely agree. And a lot of these extreme diets will ask you to put your life on hold, and when exactly do you put your life on hold, and B, even if you do say, right, I'm going to spend a lot of money on this and I'm going to put my life on hold and do exactly what they say, which is fantastic, credit to you that you can do that. But then what happens when life goes back to normal? Whereas what most healthy coaches do is say, life is always going to be happening. You can still lose weight if you need to and you want to, whilst continuing to live your life. And actually learning how to do that is also a part of weight maintenance. So like later on, when you're not trying to lose weight, but you're just trying to maintain it, like most of us are, we don't need to lose weight all the time. But we want to maintain it and not gain it. Despite the social events, and this time of year, November, December, is full of social events, full of things about food, alcohol, and it's very easy to gain weight during this period, which is fine if you do. But if you are trying to maintain, I work a lot on body weight skills, so if I get heavier, it actually makes those skills harder. So I try and maintain my weight, because pull-ups are harder if I weigh 3 kilos more. And so a lot of the stuff we talk about when we talk about fat loss, we do just to a slightly lesser degree to maintain our weight. So finding that balance, how often you drink or how much you eat a week, like it's learning how to eat for you, and learning how to eat, how much to eat to feel good in your body, while still being able to go out and socialize with friends and not have to count calories and not have to worry. When I go and sit at a dinner table with my friends, I am not worrying about what I'm eating. But I've done that because I know I have a really good diet the rest of the time, so I can sit down and enjoy the food and even indulge a little bit, but that's fine because it's part of a healthy, balanced lifestyle. And I think often when we're so busy, which many of us are, we neglect our own nutrition. Just like we neglect our own exercise, we neglect our own nutrition, and we fall into habits that are, just sort of grabbing the readily available food, whether that's cooked from scratch or not, but sort of making the quick food that sort of fixes us up for the evening, but actually isn't maybe making you feel your best. And that's what we can help you with. So it is not just about fat loss, but also the lessons you learn with a coach who's helping you lose fat, if it is a good coach, are the same kind of lessons that you then apply to a slightly lesser degree, but you still apply for weight maintenance, and as part of a healthy, active lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think weight maintenance is something, as an industry, we don't talk about enough. We all talk about fat loss because that's most of the reasons for most people to start an exercise regime is they have either been told by their GP or they feel in themselves they need to lose a bit of weight. And I have never, and this is just my experience as a women's coach, I have never met a woman who doesn't know how to diet in a capacity. Now, whether they're doing it in the most effective way, that's a different conversation. But every single woman I know knows how to diet. It's been conditioned into us by media, by society. We know how to diet. We are almost expected to diet from the get-go. And it's like, maybe, yeah, the effectiveness of it, that's to be degree. However, I don't know, most women don't know how to not diet. They don't know how to just live.
Yeah.
Most women, in my experience, when they come to me, they've spent their entire life diet, not diet, diet, not diet, diet, not diet. And they're like on a hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they don't know how to get off. They don't know how to just go on that plain sailing, that level, to just go, actually, I'm happy here now.
Yeah.
Let's keep it here and let's keep it on an even keel. They have no idea how to do that because they've never been taught. They don't know how to not diet. They don't know what to do when they're not chasing fat loss.
Yeah, agreed. Calorie maintenance, and we don't even need to call it that. Maintaining your weight. And I have 2 clients at the moment that come to mind, actually different stories, but let's see what it brings up for you, and we'll go off There's two, but one is has lost a lot of weight, and she'd gained a lot of weight over maybe 2 years. Quite a young client actually, but she's lost like 15 kilos this year. She's not underweight, but
Amazing.
yeah, she's like, but needs to now maintain. She also wants to look ripped. That is her goal. She's quite a young person in her 20s,
Yeah.
wants to look ripped, but to do that, she needs to train hard and build muscle. And at the moment, her weight is still going down, and I'm like, we need to stabilize your weight. And it's because she's got into a very consistent routine with her nutrition that has allowed her to lose all this weight. And now she's struggling to like essentially eat more, even though she says she's trying and everything. But it's just sort of so ingrained, she's struggling to eat more, which is like the reverse problem that most people have. But it's still a problem that I'm sure a lot of people have when they get to the end of a dieting cycle. And then the second client, who's like similar but different, again, fairly sort of late 20s, isn't in a fat loss phase, but just struggles to put on weight. So she's sitting around, that a healthy weight, but slightly under for her height and her body. And she wants to gain weight, but she, again, struggles to eat enough. And that might sound counterintuitive to some people. They're like, oh, how can you struggle with that? I'm a foodie, I'm the same. I can eat a lot. But actually, for someone who's just like in a routine, also, I can say this, one of the clients is autistic, and so for her, certain foods, she's averse to certain foods. It's not as easy as just saying like, just eat more. It's like, yeah, but there's only certain foods she likes to eat. And so for both those clients, there is a little bit of a struggle to eat more. And for the one who's been trying to gain weight for a while, she simply forgets to eat. She works, she's out and about all day, driving around London, and so she's in her car and going from one client to the next. And it's easy to suddenly be at 3 p.m. and you haven't eaten. Or it's easy for her. That is her routine. And so breaking that is quite hard. As you will know, anyone can relate to like breaking a routine that you're really used to is hard. So both those clients now, the challenge is to stabilize their weight and increase it. But it can be quite tricky, actually. Like you say, we're so used to dieting and we're not so good at actually just looking after ourselves and prioritizing ourselves.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, like, as women, prioritizing ourselves can feel very uncomfortable because, again, societal expectations is that, like, we are givers. We are supposed to prioritize other people. We are nurturing other people. So to sit down and try and prioritize ourselves can be very, very uncomfortable. And I have always maintained, and this is something I say to my clients, it's something I say on my social media all the time, is like, no matter how you convince yourself what you're doing is the right thing, no one is getting your best unless you are. If you are not prioritizing yourself, you are not outputting your best. That is a hill I will die on. You will not convince me otherwise. But in terms of like clients who are struggling to eat a little bit more, I would, like, as a coach, immediately my brain goes to, okay, are they eating too much food volume? And for normal clients, you're like, yes, you want to prioritize like a lot of veggies, a lot of fiber, but are they doing that too much? Because when we're in a fat loss phase, that's the first thing you do. You go, okay, we're going to prioritize this because we want to decrease that hunger and we want to increase satiety. So are they potentially having too much of that stuff? And also like really, really easy things like increasing fats, like olive oils and things like that, avocado oils, like, and avocados themselves are a really easy way to add in fats without the volume.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I have a lot of clients who would be like your second client, who are really, really, really busy and just don't get an awful lot of chances to eat during the day. I have a couple of doctors, women who run their own businesses, and there's just not that opportunity. And one of my favorite things to do is like, right, you need to just get up 20 minutes early and have a large meal for breakfast. Be that a smoothie, and add in oils, dates, that kind of thing, and get a bulk of your nutrition in that way. You can bring that with you. It's easy transportable. You don't have to sit down and make a Michelin star type meal. Like, and I think that's something, again, in the Instagram world, we're fooled into believing that we're all making these absolutely incredible looking meals 3 times a day. I know I'm certainly not. I love to fucking cook. I grew up in a family of chefs, but I'm not making restaurant worthy food, 7 days a week by any means. And then just like having a plan, like prep your dinners, let's say, on a Sunday night so that you've got them and you know that those things meet your nutritional needs. But just being like really smart about the type of calorie you're consuming, because if you're in a fat loss phase, fats are kind of the enemy. Now, as females, we need them because they're essential to our hormone health, but they're kind of the enemy in that, like, you can consume tiny amounts for a lot of calories. But actually, if you are somebody who struggles to eat enough to meet your maintenance, or to, let's say, use the word bulk, I hate it, but let's use it anyway for this thing. They're a really, really clever thing without taking up too much volume. And if you are someone who is food adverse and has like texture issues or whatever, you can add them into foods without it changing the texture.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And actually, that's a really good point, is thinking about, we do this with fat loss where we kind of list foods to avoid or reduce because they're high in calories and they're very easy to eat a lot of, like peanut butter, like ice cream, like avocados, like things like that, that some of which are healthy. For example, an avocado, you'd think a lot of people who are trying to lose weight and struggle to lose weight will say, but I eat really healthily, but they're just eating, or they're eating double portions of rice. And so when we work on fat loss, we kind of work on that education part. But actually, when we're looking at gaining weight, which is, I think, equally important, and for these women, it's going to be really important to their health. And I'm sure many women out there, maybe some listening to this. So on the flip side, when you're trying to gain weight, we could almost have the reverse list of, like, these are foods that you can incorporate that don't necessarily feel like a lot of calories, because I think both these people struggle to eat more. Like, they feel like they're full, so it's they're they're filling up soon or quicker, and so it's actually physically hard to eat more. So things like an avocado, it's quite a smooth texture. It's not, yes, it will probably make you feel full once you've eaten it, but you can eat half or a
So
whole
much of it.
avocado, and there's a lot of calories per volume, right? Olive oil, great idea, or oils in general. A handful of walnuts, or even two, or of nuts, because they're going to be high in calories. Actually, things like carbs, like having a bagel, having things like that, are going to be high in calories. So if you've been constantly having eggs for lunch, or scrambled eggs, or an omelette, just add in a toasted bagel as well,
Yeah.
and some butter on top. Um, if you're having a sweet treat, things like ice cream, with these people, it is actually about, especially the example of the girl who's been in it's a healthy weight, but she's been a low weight for a long time and she's really struggling to gain it. And she has a lot of motivation. She wants to gain weight. So even having the odd ice cream, or actually with
Yeah.
her, she's having a cinnamon bun for breakfast because she doesn't like eating breakfast, but she likes that.
Nice.
And I'm like, hey, just at this moment in time, I just need you to eat, and to eat more. Other foods, things like a protein bar. Again, if you're in a fat loss phase, you might have less of them because they're about 200, 300 calories. But
Yeah.
for somebody who's trying to gain weight, having protein bars in the car, great. If you forget to eat,
Yeah.
at least you can have a protein bar. Or even if you do eat your lunch, have a protein bar as well.
Yeah.
So there's a few foods that are like higher in calories, and maybe don't feel like so much food, so they can be
No,
easy.
100%. And like that, if you're in the car, your protein bars, your, snack pack of nuts and things like that, M&S do them. Most places do them. They're just handy and they're not going to fill you,
Yeah, exactly.
but they are quite calorific.
Exactly. And a lot of the foods I said are healthy. I gave the example of ice cream, but a lot of the other foods, because I know the first client I spoke about, she quite rightly said, look, I don't want to fill the calories with unhealthy things. Because I was saying, also go and enjoy yourself, go and have a meal that you wouldn't normally have when you were losing weight, like go out for pizza. But she was like, yes, that's fine, but I also don't want to just fill them with unhealthy things. So actually your examples of oils, avocado, nuts, these are very healthy. Or adding in a bagel, adding in some bread, adding in some sourdough. Like, you can eat lots of healthy things.
Yeah.
Having slightly bigger portions, having a bit more yogurt in your morning yogurt bowl, or having a bit more granola on top of this is now the time where you can do that. And I
Yeah.
completely appreciate that for some women, they've lost the weight, and actually they may struggle with the opposite of, like, not going too far the other way, and learning that's kind of the most common one we encounter, is actually not going too far the other way and not putting the weight on. But these two examples I brought are actually, and I'm sure they're not isolated, are actually women who instead are, like, now struggling to accept that they can eat a bit more, or struggling with the how to do that. And like you say, for them, a lot of all this algorithm and all the social media and what's the other word, like just media, is around shrinking. And so for them, it can be quite triggering when everything is about fat loss, and they're like, oh, I don't struggle with that though. I struggle with the opposite, and no one's talking about that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's as much a mental journey as it is a physical journey, because if you have spent your whole life dieting or trying to get into this shape and you finally achieve it and you're like, oh my God, I've actually managed to do it. You're trying to hold on to that with both hands because you have struggled and you have fought to get to this place. So to let go of that control and that fat loss goal, because it's been your focus for so many years, is really, really difficult. And this is where I get into like what most people, or maybe some people, would call the woo woo. And it's like envisaging and doing the work on your future self of like who it is you want to become and why it is that we're doing these things. Because, and this is something that I really pride myself on, is this open communication with my clients, because I want them to ask me why. I want them to be curious about why we're doing things and how we're doing things. Because if you understand the why behind it, it's much easier to kind of get on board and do it, and also stick with the consistency of it. But if you're just like, oh well, she said to do it, and you have absolutely no context of why we're doing something and what it is that's going to mean for you and your results and your future, then it's just a lot easier with that understanding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. I encourage my clients to ask questions all the time. I wish they would ask more. They do ask questions, but I'm like, pick my brains, because I like the challenge as well of like being thrown a question and sometimes being like, do you know what? I have an answer, but I also want to look this up and learn more about it. So I'm going to go away and do that. And I thought actually we could end on this question I have here, which is a client question that came up recently. I've now achieved my goal weight. Now how do I move to maintenance? And I really like what you were just saying about envisioning the person you want to be, not just the way you want to look, but the person you want to be and the role model you want to be. Because ultimately, whether we recognize it or not, and I think it's a good thing to start to recognize, you are a role model to the people around you. Whether you are in a status of like, older than them or more senior than them at work, or the auntie versus the nieces, or not, you could be the younger person. People still look at you, especially if you're doing things well, as a role model, as an inspiration. So whether you're comfortable with that position or not, because I know I for a long time wasn't, but now I've realized I'm 100% a role model to my clients, to my family, and also in parkour, which is quite a niche sport with not many women, and especially not many women who speak up and have an online presence. I know I'm a huge role model to a lot of women who look to parkour or are doing parkour or want to do parkour. And so I'm actually really excited about it now. It's like, right, you have this ability to influence people in a positive way. And so when I think of maintenance, the first things I would think about is prioritizing yourself. Like, you are important, and having energy to give to people, that comes from looking after yourself first. So that means noticing patterns of stress, noticing if you're overworking. It's great to be ambitious. I 100% am very ambitious, but you also need to know how to rest or how you rest. So looking at patterns of stress, sleeping enough. Even if sleep isn't perfect, can you at least be in bed 7 to 8 hours with your eyes shut, resting, not on your phone, not on your laptop, just resting, even if you're not asleep. And then exercising well, looking for that like good quality of movement that then you can lift heavy, but first focus on like moving well, moving more, exercising, 3 to 4 times a week, more if you want, but sort of that minimum of 3 to 4 times a week. Keeping your steps high, because that means you are an active person. That is great for your mental health, for your heart and lungs. That is great for your body. Your body needs to move. It aches if it doesn't. And actually being able, think of yourself, if you were like, what do you call it? Like a mountain guide. You'd be walking loads of kilometers a day. So at the very least in a city, we need to be walking, those 5 kilometers a day, in and around the house and to your shops and back. But get out and walk and drink enough water. Because when we're dehydrated, we don't feel good. And our brain works less, our skin starts to suffer. Like, drink enough water, because that's important for your bodily functions. So those are kind of the things I would start with, and none of that is to do with fat loss. If you're doing all of those things, then you're probably going to maintain your weight. The final thing, which is still important, but I just don't want women to obsess over only this, is nutrition. So obviously eating well, filling your plate with lots of veggies and fruit, because that is your fiber. We never get enough fiber. Eating enough protein, we're better at that now, but still, if you haven't focused on that, eating meat, fish, eggs, tofu, making sure you're getting that in pretty much every meal. Greek yogurt in your breakfast, or whatever it is, protein powders in your breakfast. But even before nutrition, there's all these things. So stress, sleep, exercise, steps, hydration, and then nutrition. And that might sound like a lot, but honestly, with the right coach that can help you get started, eventually it just becomes your normal. You might have noticed if you're watching this as a video, I'm drinking water throughout because I noticed I hadn't drunk in the hour before. But like making sure they just become things you don't. Do you think about brushing your teeth every night? Yeah, you have the thought, but you just go and do it. But it's not something you have to like write on the wall to remind yourself to do it. So eventually, genuinely, they do just become your normal, and they're not. They might be effortful at the start, but they eventually become effortless, and that's a great place to be. And then maintaining your weight isn't the problem. My weight doesn't really change throughout the year. There might be an extra kilo at some points in the year, or a kilo less at some points in the year, and it might increase around my cycle, around my period, but then it will decrease again. But the fluctuations are 1, 2, 3 kilos. Like we're not. My weight stays. When I go to a GP, I step on the scales. He always says the same, or she always says the same weight. So that comes from living a really healthy and balanced lifestyle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, especially as women get into a certain age bracket, which is, I'm coming into it now, that late 30s, 40s, and beyond, when you're starting to go into that like risk zone for perimenopause and menopause and all that kind of stuff, like the sleep aspect of it becomes so important. Like sleep for everyone is important. But when you get into that age range where your sleep is potentially going to be affected by your hormones, like that prioritization is absolutely key. And the one thing I will say about your bed and your bedroom are for two things, and that is sleeping and sex. It is not for scrolling. Your laptop does not belong in that bed. It is not a workspace. It is not a space for eating. I personally am completely against televisions in the bedroom.
Yeah, I agree.
Your bedroom is those two things, sleeping and sex. That is it. That is the only reason you should be in that bed. Your phone should not be in it. I have stopped, because I noticed when I was waking up in the middle of the night, if I woke up in the middle of the night, the first thing you do is you reach for your phone to check the time. And then you like notice you have an email notification, and then you're like, oh my God, I must check that. What the fuck are you going to do at 2 a.m.? Put the phone down.
Yeah,
Put the phone
exactly.
down. So like my phone now doesn't, like the charger's not even in the bedroom.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
And that is something I feel really strongly about. And like, if you are a person who struggles to fall asleep, fine, read in bed. Grand. Like, but don't read on like an iPad or something like that. If you want to read on a device, get a Kindle that's not connected to the internet or anything like that. It needs
Yeah,
to have one function and one function only. Because if you're on an iPad, you are going to be scrolling. You
yeah,
are going to be checking your notifications. So for me, that sleep piece is absolutely vital.
yeah.
And I think there's not anybody that I know that isn't going to benefit from good quality sleep.
Yeah, exactly. That, yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's actually so good for your mental health, especially if you're stressed. Just trying to spend more time resting. And it doesn't need to be, 10 hours a day. We're talking 7 to 8 hours, that night time, evening time, where a lot of us, if we're really honest with ourselves, are spending the evening scrolling and or watching TV. And so just turning that off a little bit earlier, not watching the extra episode, once in a while it's fine to indulge, but it's what
Of
you do
course.
most of the time that is so important. And once you start to do it and feel better, you understand why you start to want to do it, you start to crave it. And something I was
Absolutely.
thinking was just also like that fear where if you have been successful at weight loss and you've lost a lot of weight, which is brilliant, and hopefully you've worked with a really good coach and you've done it in a really healthy way. Just remember that, like you were saying earlier, you gained the weight probably over a few years. There was a few years where you didn't prioritize yourself, where you started to gain weight, and eventually you didn't feel like yourself anymore, and that's why you went to a coach to lose weight. You are not about to go back to that. Even if
No.
you increase your portion sizes a little bit or have the odd, thing that's you weren't eating when you were in a fat loss phase, you're not going back to that person who gained that weight, who wasn't prioritizing. You are a different person now. And that is why the journey is so important. And that is why doing a 6 week or even a 12-week fat loss extreme transformation isn't helpful, because the journey hasn't happened. Whereas it's the journey that changes you. And so you're now a different person. You're not going back to the habits you were doing before that made you gain the weight. And
That's
that's
such a
why
good
you're
point.
not going to gain the weight. And you're only going to fully feel and understand that with time passing, but you're not going to gain the weight. and if the scales go up 1 or 2 kilos, that's fine. You're just stabilizing there. But now just live your life and live by these healthy habits that you and your coach have built, and go on and move on from fat loss and enjoy life and lift weights or do your sport and go out on beautiful walks and enjoy food, knowing that you've learnt so much about yourself, nutrition, exercise. You're not going to suddenly put all the weight back on.
Oh, I love that. I do. And that's, I think, why the mindset piece is so important, so that you can let go of that old version of yourself, because we get so attached to the versions of ourselves in our head. And this is where working with a good coach is going to really come into play, because if you take care of that mindset piece of letting go of that old version, yes, she served a purpose at a point, but you're no longer at that point, and you have to accept and grow into and step into this new version of yourself. And once you do that and you have your pillars that you can lean on, your weight fluctuations aren't going to be like so bad. They're not going to be so big, and we're going to stop catastrophizing it, because I think we treat like weight gain as if it's the worst thing in the world. It's not. It's just going to happen. Like, there are weight fluctuations through the year. Like, as a coach and as a person who just wants to maintain her weight, I don't bulk or cut throughout the year, because my year will naturally do that. There will be naturally times in the year where I'm going out to eat a bit more. We have guests coming over. We're going out all the time. We're drinking more wine or whatever because it's harvest time or whatever it is. And then when I go back to normal, that stabilizes again. And I think as long as you have those good pillars at play, you can let life happen. You can let your holidays happen, because you always have your baseline to come back to, and that will stabilize you. That is your life buoy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what we can help you with, is building these sustainable habits, these healthy habits, these pillars that seem so formal when we're just saying it like this of a podcast. But when you go through the process, it's wonderful. And they're things that you start to look forward to. And I know all my clients, I don't have to give them a pep talk every week. They're just busy doing these things because they love it and it makes them feel good. And it gives them something to focus on. And I think we can be so overwhelmed with the amount of information out there, and just having some really simple structure. And we need structure in our lives. And I'm sure if you're feeling really overwhelmed right now, you realize you need more structure. And that is, again, what a coach can help you with. But then once you have it, it doesn't feel rigid. Instead it's empowering. It's helping you to structure your life in a way that's sort of like that scaffolding that supports you up.
Yes.
And then you can just be your best self and feel good and have energy. Even on the days where you slept a little bit less good, or you went out for dinner the night before and had a bit of wine, but then the structures, the scaffolding is still there to hold you up, and you still feel good and you still feel energized and you're still excited to go to the gym. And it's transformational, and I think everyone should experience it. So if you are struggling with either fat loss or fat gain, and you're looking to build a more sustainable lifestyle that can really lift you up and make you feel good, then you can work with either of us or both of us. But let's wrap it up, maybe summarizing where people can find us. So I'm on Instagram at strengthwithg. My website is strengthwithg.com. And I have a podcast that you are listening to, or you're listening to one of ours, and mine is Strength with G on Spotify and YouTube.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at The Female Strength Collective. My website is thefemalestrengthcollective.com. And yeah, you can find me on the podcast, which is currently only on Spotify until I figure out how to put it on other platforms.
But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. If you have any follow-up questions as well from this podcast, please feel free to message us on Instagram. We'd love to chat. We'd love you to pick our brains. So please feel free to. And thanks for listening.
Bye.